Britney Spears was placed under a conservatorship in 2008 after a public breakdown and involuntary psychiatric hold. Since her Las Vegas residency ended in 2017, Britney rarely makes public appearances or does interviews. For fans, the only updates on the pop star come from her occasional posts on social media. One of the latest, a post on her Instagram last week.
The moment we've all been waiting for last week. The Super Bowl!
The post was made at a curious time. Instead of talking about the trending new documentary framing Britney Spears, she chose to talk about the Super Bowl. As detailed in the documentary, these infrequent and sometimes mysterious posts have caused fans to speculate. What is really going on with Britney? In 2019, Britney abruptly canceled her second highly anticipated Las Vegas residency, walking straight past the press without a word. Then, amid rumors of clashes with her father, Britney went silent, leaving fans to wonder where did she go, and sparking a movement to fight for Britney.
The Free Britney movement is advocating for the end of Britney Spears' conservatorship.
She's been in court since last year, battling the hold her father, Jamie, has on her life. And the latest hearing has fans frustrated and confused.
Why is she still in this? Why is her dad making all of her decisions?
Now, the documentary has not only thrust the Free Britney movement into the spotlight, it has many looking at Britney's life with a new critical lens. Magazines like Glamour posting, "We are all to blame." Britney's ex-boyfriend, Justin Timberlake, apologizing in an Instagram post last week saying, "I'm deeply sorry for the times in my life where my actions contributed to the problem." Going on to say, "I specifically apologize to Britney Spears and Janet Jackson. I respect and care for these women, and I know I failed."
Free Britney!
We're going to talk to a lot of those Britney fans that you saw in the video, but this really became a national conversation after that film that I mentioned, Framing Britney Spears. And I've been waiting to talk with the director of that film, Samantha Stark, and she joins us now live. Samantha, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Could you have ever imagined or anticipated the reaction to this film?
Absolutely not. I'm so surprised. I actually was worried people would continue making fun of Britney Spears from watching the footage, because that's what's happened so often. I had no idea that people would respond to it and people like you would respond to it. It was very moving to me.
You know, you made the point. You describe yourself as someone who wasn't necessarily a fan of Britney Spears, but this changed so much. When you said you weren't a fan, what did you mean by that?
You know, I've been trying to think about my feelings about this. So I'm about the same age as Britney, and I grew up watching her, deal with all this misogyny, and I remember feeling resentful of her, and I didn't, and I don't know why, or jealous of her maybe, like I couldn't live up to her standard. And what I realized is that it's not that. I mean, Britney is a rebellious person. She's creative. She's nothing like the way I was told to think of her. And I just think what I was responding to was watching the way people treated her and not wanting that to happen to me. And I've been thinking a lot about how that affected my development and, all the other people in my age bracket watching that.
Well, that's a big part of this. And as I said, we're going to talk about the Free Britney movement and how it started with people really trying to interpret her Instagram posts. For example, just last night, because I follow a lot of what she does now, she posts this puzzle, a Scrabble board. That was Britney's post. And so what fans do now, they go to her Instagram and they look for clues. They look for signs that she is asking for help. And something like that, Samantha, the minute she put that Scrabble board up, these fans are looking for things there. How do you process it now that you've done this film?
Well, first of all, I turned the computer upside down and was trying to look for clues
You and
myself.
I was like, I need my Pat Sajak Vanna White help, because I find myself now looking for these. Well, let me ask you this. Is there anything that prohibits Britney Spears from calling someone like yourself after seeing your film and saying, Samantha, off the record, here's what's happening to me?
It's hard to say. We don't know. I do think for many, many, many years, there's been a super tight circle around Britney, and that's enabled by the conservatorship. One of the things the conservators can do, it listed in court documents as their powers, is they can limit who Britney interacts with. They can limit who comes to visit Britney. And so the stories I've heard from journalists who have tried to interview her or have interviewed her is that if they did it, it was under very, very careful watch. And, they maybe had to agree to having her team have final say over what is actually published. So that's a reason the New York Times hasn't interviewed her. And it's really, really hard to tell if she could ever speak unfiltered in the situation she's in right now.
In the documentary, you have a lot of people who participate who used to be in Britney's life. But at the end, you list all of the names of people who did not want to comment, including her sister, Lynn, her sister, Jamie Lynn, her mother, Lynn, her father, Jamie, exes, boyfriends, and husbands. Kevin Federline his attorney anyway, did make a comment recently suggesting that Britney's estate is worth more than $60 million and that it's thanks in part to this conservatorship that she was able to rebuild her finances. A lot of the documentary does surround the business of Britney, the paparazzi and the press who profited, and the potential that Britney's mind, body, soul, and finances are all being held from her. What do you feel after all of this research that you've done is happening there with her finances?
I think a lot of people have been talking about, Britney wants her father, Jamie Spears, to step down from the conservatorship, and that's what we saw in these court documents from her court-appointed attorney, Sam Ingham. Britney was not deemed capable of hiring her own attorney, and so for the past 13 years, she's had an attorney chosen by the court. But I've been thinking that even if Jamie does step down, she will still be in the conservatorship. There will be other people doing this, but she still will not be able to sign a check. She won't be able to enter into a business contract herself. She won't be able to choose her own medical care or her own doctors. And it just feels like there's this big conflict that doesn't make sense. How could Britney make millions of dollars in one of the biggest Las Vegas residencies of all time, be a judge on the X Factor judging other people, do albums, tours, and also at the same time we're told she's incapable of making these very basic decisions for herself.
Samantha, in the documentary there, you're talking about showing how paparazzi, how tabloids made so much money getting the money shot from Britney Spears. I broke down crying when the story was revealed in your documentary that night she was trying to see her children and she'd been turned away 2 times. I get emotional thinking about it. 2 times at the gate trying to see her kids. And everyone just saw that picture of her with the shaven head looking unhinged. But what mother wouldn't be heartbroken? What father wouldn't be turned away, being chased by the paparazzi? All of that was happening, and folks didn't care. When you saw that, when you learned those details, what did it tell you about the way she was treated?
It changed everything. I mean, that's one of the reasons the film's called Framing Britney Spears is there's that one frame of her with the umbrella and it says, Britney's having a meltdown. And we wanted to know what was outside the frame, and it was sadder than I imagined. Britney was going through a custody battle during this time period when this is happening, and she's a mother. We forget that. She wanted to see her kids, and there's Danny, he gave us his footage of that night, and you hear that hearing what was happening also is very valuable, I think, in reframing your idea of her, because you hear her cousin Allie begging, stop, stop, stop. And you see it lasts 2 seconds. She hits his car and runs away. A lot of people have been messaging me. I would have hit his car much sooner. But I mean, you forget that she was a human and a mother.
Well, and that's
But
a part of the story again, that you present, and that Lynn Spears honestly said at the time and was ignored, that some of her issues may have been related to postpartum. And we were doing stories on postpartum, but that could not have applied to Britney Spears, that she could not be seen as a new mom potentially suffering from that and other things. The Free Britney activists, or many people are in their 30s and their 40s, and they've called out a lot of journalists who are much older now who covered the story. I was struck by how many times older men asked Britney Spears in interviews, was she a virgin? I could not believe that that was seen as acceptable. And by the way, I was an adult journalist at that time and did not even, I guess, process it with my colleagues that we were all watching as women fighting for our voice in the newsroom. This old man asking this kid whether or not she was a virgin. But we're seeing it through fresh eyes now. Is there redemption even for the press in how we handled her?
I think a lot of people are taking a hard look at that right now, which I'm so thrilled is happening. I also think a lot of the gatekeepers now are people my age, people who grew up with Britney Spears and watched that happen to her, and we're saying no more. We're not going to
Yeah.
do that. So I think there's a lot more. Opportunity to have serious conversations about this. And, looking at the chronology, Britney was really pressured to say she was a virgin. And then as soon as she, takes power in her sexuality, say, and cheats on Justin Timberlake, that's when it's okay to say anything you want to her because then now she's bad. And
Let me tell
and
you, you
yeah.
have shaken up pop culture conversation. And what I think is important to note here, this is bigger than Britney. This is about society and misogyny and so many other layers. So it's not whether you like her music or not. This is a wake up call. And Samantha, thank you for joining us to talk about it.
Thank you.